Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone back to another awesome episode of A Queen's Roundtable Show and Podcast. I am so excited. I have a guest here today that you guys are gonna really be able to get a lot from. Basically, they help you be able to navigate some tough issues that you yourself may be experiencing or someone else that you know. So I am 𝐵𝐵Harrison. I am your host for A Queen's Roundtable Show and Podcast. We are here every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, we were running a little behind schedule. I do apologize, but you all know I'm coming and I'm going to come strong and give you good content to be able to help you both personally, professionally, as well as develop your leadership skills. One of the three or all of the above, right? So also too, I want to take this time to say that the next A Queens Roundtable Leadership Symposium is coming up January the 15th, 2023. Can you all believe we are like, less than a month away from 2023? So this is an excellent way. Apply to be a speaker, be a sponsor of the symposium, and or advertise your business or all of the above. This is an excellent opportunity, an excellent way to start out the new year, taking the virtual stage. And this is a global stage, mind you. We are committed to quality, personal, professional, and leadership development for women in business to help them scale. Authors, podcasters, live event hosts. If you have your own show, it doesn't matter. You're a coach, you're a consultant, an influencer. You need to take the virtual stage for this global event. This one is titled Uniting Women of Color Worldwide. So yes, I'm calling all women of color from the UK, Paris, Italy, Africa, the Caribbean, Canada. I don't care where you are, Asia, South America, wherever you are, we want you to take the virtual stage, okay? And again, this is an opportunity that you don't want to miss, because the idea is that you can not only bring more or put more eyes on you as a business owner, your product and or service, as well as be able to network with other women, other women and men in business. Right. And that's where the power comes from, everybody. We can't do it alone. When you collaborate with others, that's how you truly scale your business and increase your impact. Okay. Again, let's not talk about it. Let's be about it. Let's collaborate. So go to my page. For those of you following me on Realizing Your Potential 123, which is my business page, or my personal Facebook profile, 𝐵𝐵Harrison. The link is everywhere up and down my timeline. That way you can click on it and just sign up. Okay. Don't be left out on this one. I'm telling you, do not be left out. So I have Miss Frances here. She is my guest today, and I am so excited to have her here and allow her to actually tell her story. Again, we want you to know you are not alone. You are not alone. I don't care what you were going through. The idea is that oftentimes we suffer in silence, right? And I don't want you to do that anymore. I don't want you to suffer in silence. I want you to know that you are not alone and that you will get through this. You will make it through. So without further ado, I'm going to let Miss Frances go ahead and introduce herself. Go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know just a little bit of your background.
Hello, everyone. My name is frances-ashe-goins. I am 74 years old. I always start it with that because I'm so glad for life and health. I am a registered nurse. I have been a registered nurse for over 52 years. And in my life as a registered nurse, I've worked many different areas of the hospital, mainly intensive care, emergency room. My favorite place was newborn nursery, where you got to play with the babies. I actually love the fact that my nursing career started before I was even a nurse. As a child, I played with my dolls, and I was always fixing them and bandaging them up. So I knew I wanted to be a nurse from the very beginning. After I got my nursing degree, I went ahead and went into public health and got a master's in public health. And the reason I did that is because in nursing, I was taking care of a few patients at a time, and I saw the health inequities and wanted to concentrate on more people, and I could do that through public health. In my public health experience, I worked with the National Commission on AIDS. I worked with the White House Office on AIDS. When I was with the government, my last position was the Deputy Director for the Office on Women's Health, where we worked with HIV/AIDS and women, bringing that to the light, worked on domestic violence, and introducing health and domestic violence, not just the police part of it and the social work part of it, but the health part of it, knowing that many people trust the nurses and the healthcare practitioners. Also worked on human trafficking. Lupus awareness was very important, one of the issues I worked on. And so through my career, before I retired in 2014, I was very active in aspects of public health, doing public health education, doing public health policy, and funding programs to help organizations get what they needed so that they could help people in their communities.
Oh my God. You know what? Oh wow, you come with a wealth of experience.
Yes.
Wow, Frances, that
Yes.
is, woo.
Yes.
Look, I'm sitting here and I don't even know what to ask about first. Wow. So let's start here. I know that last month, no, not last month, oh my God, we're in December now. A couple months ago in October 2022, you published, I believe the title of it is Never Give Up. So if you could tell us what's the story behind that book? Why, and what is it about, and why did you feel it was important to write it, and how has it impacted others?
The story goes back to when my daughter was 17 and she was applying for college and had to get a health assessment. And at that point, we found out that her blood pressure was sky high. I noticed that she had lost a lot of weight. She was getting a little darker in complexion, but I didn't know what was going on. And she didn't complain about anything. She was very healthy. But it was at that point that I got the call 2 weeks later to take her to the hospital immediately because her kidneys were failing. And that's the start of the 32-year journey with my daughter. My daughter had many complications along the way. And as a nurse, I knew what the complications were, but I didn't know all of them. So I had to do a lot of research about kidney disease and dialysis and transplantation and all the effects of dialysis and things you had to do, which was beyond my basic nursing education. As a nurse, I also knew about the healthcare system and how it worked. But it wasn't working well for us. In some cases it was, but in other cases it wasn't. Her illness lasted a long time. It was a chronic condition, and there were many ups and downs with that. All during the time that I was with her, every time she had a hospitalization, every time she had a doctor's appointment, I started journaling, because I had to keep up with what the heart doctor said, what the bone doctor said, what the lung doctor said, what the kidney doctor said. I had to keep up with what everybody was saying, especially when she was in the hospital and we're getting all these new doctors that were coming in saying this and that. And I was asking them, did they collaborate with her regular doctors? Did they know what her condition was? And as we went from hospital to hospital, depending on her condition, I found out that the healthcare system wasn't working well for us. They were very, very busy, short-staffed, and doing what they thought was necessary for my daughter. But knowing her history and knowing what she had gone through, the many complications, it was important that I alerted each one of the specialists to not look at her as their specialty, their special part, but look at her as a whole person, and not just give her stuff without explaining things to her. And I taught her also that she should write journals. When I was not there with her, because remember, I was working during this time. So I was doing all this HIV, domestic violence stuff, human trafficking. I was doing all this stuff for the world. And but my daughter was in and out of the hospital at the same time. So I taught her how to write down whoever came in the room, what they said, what their name was. I also helped her, and that hospital at that time was helping her to learn her medicines so that she would be familiar with the actions of the medicines. And sometimes people would bring medicines that were new, and she wouldn't take it unless they explained what it was for and why she was taking it. And sometimes she did. There were errors made, and she was going to be given the wrong medicine, and she stopped it. Many times there were times when they were coming to draw blood, and someone else had drawn the same test like an hour before that, and she could stop them. And the reason that was important is because she was very anemic and very hard to find blood for her. She had a rare antibody, Augustine antibody. So if you're coming in drawing a lot of blood, then you're taking away from the blood that she really needed for testing that was already done. So these were some of the things that I wrote about in the book. And as you say, the reason I wrote the book is because I wanted to share with other people that they did not have to take everything that was given to them, that was told to them, that they had to do their own research, but also to question the healthcare professionals that were coming in to talk to them. If they said they were going to give you something, question and ask why. What were the effects on my body? Sometimes when people go, and I saw this when I was a nurse, practicing nurse in the hospital, that the physician would come in and say, blah, 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 blah. And as soon as they walked out, they would turn to the nurse and say, well, what did he say? And I was like, no, you should ask your question while he's in here. I can tell you what he said, but you need to know that from him. And you also, or her, and you also need to know that you are in control of your body. And nobody knows your body better than you, no matter what the test, no matter what the condition, how it interacts with various parts of your body. You are feeling that, you know that, and you need to express that. My daughter died last year on February 21st. After that point, she died 10 days after my mom's died. And the reason I stop that, my mom died, and my mom was ready to die. She said, I'm ready to go and meet my maker. My daughter fell and hurt her neck and had to have cervical surgery on the back of her neck. And she had complications for that. So when my mom died, and then we were having mom's funeral, they were calling me to tell me about my daughter, that she was near the end. I learned so much over the years of taking care of my daughter and dealing with various dialysis centers and other medical institutions. And what I learned was each one is different, even though they all are hospitals with healthcare providers in them. They're all different. And some of their procedures are not necessarily good for you. And things that I told you about my daughter and her low hemoglobin, she was very anemic, and drawing blood from her all the time was not a good thing to do, even though they wanted to get tests. And so sometimes I stopped them. I said, no, her hemoglobin's too low. You're not getting another test. You just drew one yesterday, so don't do that. Don't draw some more blood. And you can do that. Sometimes they ask you to fill out a form. I'm like, okay, I was just in the hospital and they were going to give me insulin. And I was telling them, no, my hemoglobin A1C is not low enough for me to get insulin now. Let me recover. And so they weren't going to give it to me because I refused it, but I had to sign a paper and say, no, I'm refusing it. And this is why I'm refusing it. So, it's very important as you are dealing with not just hospitals and healthcare institutions, you're dealing with anybody. You know, speak your mind. You know what's good for you. They can help you because they have the expertise, but together you work in partnership. It's important that you have a caregiver with you, someone that's, I'm not going to say not going to get as excited as you are, but someone that could hear what's happening from a different perspective than you when you're about to pass out because they tell you you've got something really, really bad and you hear nothing else after that. But the caregiver that's with you, your person can hear what else they said or what else they meant, or could ask some questions that you might not be able to ask at that time. And so that's why I wrote the book, as a guide for people, to let them know that they too can survive, they too can speak up, because they have a brain, they have a body, and they have a God. And that's why I wrote the book. I know it's
Wow.
quite lengthy.
Whew, you know, I don't even know where to start. Okay, so I definitely want to end on a note of asking additional questions in terms of how to, you know, how to navigate, especially since, you know, you are a nurse as well as, you know, you've gone through this, you know, with the healthcare system. But before we get into that piece, with your daughter, so she ultimately had, or she had a rare condition that caused her kidneys to fail.
Well, you know, that's really interesting question, because there is something that the American Kidney Fund is working on now, and that's the unknown causes of kidney condition. She was, they said it might have been her blood pressure, because her blood pressure was really high, but they had a phrase that they used, etiology unknown, which means they didn't know the cause of her kidney failure. It was only in the last 5 years that they finally diagnosed her with FSGS, which means that the filtering system in her kidneys wasn't working well. And that's what caused the kidney failure. But it took them a long time to find that out. Many times, when you think about medicine, you hear the term the practice of medicine, because they're always practicing, they're always learning, they're always, research is always going on that comes to have different outcomes for different people. Even for cancer, the breast cancer, the Ashkenazi Jews, and the BRCA1 and 2, that came about through research. So it takes some time to find out causes of certain conditions. But with my daughter, it took them quite a while. But what they knew is that her kidneys were not working and she needed some form of treatment. She did have 2 transplants. The first one failed after about 3 months. The second one, to know that all the treatments that they have, all the conditions that they have, that sometimes a little bit later something better will come along.
So now you went out for a minute there. You said she had 2 transplants. You said the first one failed after 3 months. And what did you say about the second one?
The second one lasted close to 9 months. So that was really heartbreaking when that second one failed, because it looked like she'd been past the point where she would reject it.
Now why did it fail? I mean, or so
her body rejected it.
Okay.
If you think about it, when you get a kidney from somebody else, they match it as best they can, but your body will, it's a foreign body. And so your immune system is going to fight that foreign body. And even though they give you anti-rejection medicines to keep that down, sometimes it just doesn't work. Your immune system is a lot stronger. And that's what happened with hers. The first time it was from a child, and it didn't last but 3 months. And the second time it was from an older lady, and it lasted for 9 months. And then her body rejected it.
So, and then when the body rejects it, what do they do after that?
She's on dialysis.
Okay. Okay.
She's on dialysis, and once they put her on a machine that cleans out a lot of the poisons that her kidneys would have cleaned out of her bloodstream.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there are a couple of types of dialysis. There's peritoneal, where they put a tube in your stomach, and it by osmosis gets rid of the impurities. But she had hemodialysis, which means she had to have a shunt, which is a vein connected to an artery that is plugged up into a machine that's like a washing machine, and it washes out the impurities out of your blood.
Okay, so those are the two ways. One is the shunt, and then the other one is through osmosis.
Yes, ma'am. That's the way it's done for the peritoneal dialysis. The one that goes in your stomach. And there's a tube that comes out of this.
You know what? I don't know. As you can tell, I don't know anything about dialysis. I mean, I have an uncle who, towards the latter part of his life, was on dialysis, but you know, I didn't see him regularly, so I don't know anything about dialysis. Okay, I didn't even know it was two types of dialysis. Wow. Okay, I guess, but the thing is with the dialysis, well, I guess, well, let me see. What's the question I'm asking? With the dialysis, isn't that like at some point harmful to the body, I guess?
Well, if you think about it, your kidneys are no longer working. And if you don't have a machine to take the impurities out of your body, then you die.
Okay.
So that's what dialysis does. So even though there are complications from dialysis, your choices are do dialysis or die. And some people make the choices not to have dialysis because they don't want all the complications that come along with it.
But now, does the dialysis make your kidneys? I don't know, this may be a silly question, but does the dialysis make your kidneys?
Your kidneys aren't working. Your kidneys aren't working.
Okay. So it's not like, you know, sometimes like maybe, or at least this is my thought process.
Okay.
It's like, if you give somebody a high blood pressure medication and the body will just say, oh, okay, well, you know what? If you're going to regulate the blood pressure, I'm not going to try to do it anymore. You know, I guess that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, does it kind of, further deteriorate the kidneys? But I guess no, because in order to go on dialysis, your kidneys are not working at all.
Kidneys are not working at all. They've actually shrunk and hardened, and they become very hard. I've seen my daughter a couple of ultrasounds, and I saw her kidneys that were still in her body, but they weren't working at all. They had hardened and they were no longer functioning.
Okay.
That's why you needed the machine.
Okay. So you know what? Let's do a quick commercial break, everyone. And then when we come back, I would like to share my experience with working with my dad and him going in and out of the hospital, and then kind of navigate to, you know, just some different tips and tools that people can do to try to, Okay, so we're going to do a quick commercial break, everyone, and then we will be right back. Uh-oh, here we are. Okay. Give us 1 second and we'll be right back, everybody.
Realizing Your Potential LLC presents Born to Lead, Awakening the Leader Within. This anthology brings together women that have overcome hardships in their lives and have managed not only to survive, but thrive. Their stories focus on resiliency, adaptability, and strength, acknowledging the innate strength and leadership qualities in African American women. realizing your potential.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, everybody.
That's okay.
So go ahead and grab a pad and a pen or pencil so you can jot some of these things down. So I guess the first thing that came to my mind is that I know now the healthcare system is so fragmented, meaning I know exactly what you mean when you say all the different doctors and the different specialists, because my dad is, what is he, 77, I think now, or 78. And this last year, the year and a half, he has been going in and out of the hospital. And it is amazing to me how they have all these different specialists come in, right? But they only know about one thing. You know, it's like they don't know, they don't know anything about anything other than what their laser, you know, what their specialty is. And it doesn't seem like they talk to one another, right? It's like literally from one day to the next during the hospital stay, you might hear all different types of things. One doctor came in and said he had C. diff. Another doctor comes in and say, oh no, he doesn't have C. diff. He has a UTI. You know, then a different doctor comes in. Oh well, you know, he has a problem with his stomach. You know, so now we're having to see a gastro doctor. And it's just amazing to me that, I mean, it is such an experience. Oh, and then on top of that, he has dementia, right? So he doesn't know, you know, he doesn't know he's allergic to that particular medication, or he doesn't know to say, hey, you already took blood from me. Do you have to take blood again? Or what was the results of that last test, right? And it, you know, so and there, and as a family member, we can't be there with him 24/7, you know, and there's certain times that they call to speak with either myself or my brother, and sometimes they don't call, you know. So just the whole experience in itself just leaves you feeling just helpless, defeated, you know, wondering if you're getting the right information, wondering if you're really doing what's right or what's in the best interest of your loved one. So I'm really interested to hear, and I know this is just just a segment. You know, I know that you're not going to be able to answer, you know, all of the questions. So, you know, definitely everybody, make sure you're jotting a few things down. Make sure you are following her. She's going to let you know where you can follow her at, and definitely make sure that you grab her book. So go ahead, just kind of jump in. Let them know real quick. Before you start, Frances, where can they buy the book at again?
Amazon.com. And it's called Never Give Up, Cheryl's Story. This is the book, Never Give Up. Whoa, there it is. Never Give Up, Cheryl's Story. And the reason I when I was saying never give up, because that was Cheryl's mantra throughout all of her challenges as a teenager, as a young adult, was never give up. No matter what they say, never give up. I'll just tell you one quick story. I took Cheryl to a circus, and we were doing this as a family time, and she was in a wheelchair, and I took her, and she had a great time. And on the way home, she was not feeling very well. And I told her I was going to sleep in the bed with her that night, because it was a king size bed, and she was very happy I was doing that. In the middle of the night, she woke up with pain in her back. And she didn't look good at all. So I called 911. And the ambulance came, and she was telling me, Mom, well, can't you drive? And I was like, no, baby, I can't drive and take care of you at the same time. But when the ambulance got there, she was having a heart attack. She went to the hospital, and they put her in ICU, of course. And the next day, the heart doctor came and said, well, she has blockages, and she has a 50% chance of living and a 50% chance of dying. And Cheryl and I looked at him and said, okay, we'll take the 50% chance of living. And he was like, well, me too. So there are good things that they can't say. And that doctor prayed before he operated on my daughter. That was a miracle. But anyway, let's get back into your story. Well, the first thing, you said your father has dementia. So that means he's in a facility. And that facility has rules and regulations about how they treat people with dementia and as they're coming in and out of the hospital, right?
Yes.
So, one thing that you have to do, you need to make sure that you connect with the head nurse and the CEO of that facility. When you go into the hospital, usually they have a hospitalist, and that's the newest thing that the hospitals have done. I don't like it because I'd rather my physician be the one that would admit me to the hospital, but that's the way they do it, and that's so they can get some more money, I guess. Anyway, um, but make sure that when he goes in the hospital, that his primary care physician also knows that he's in the hospital. Also, the person that takes care of him, make sure that they know. You be the conduit between the hospital and his regular family, regular physician. There's also something that you should know. Nursing homes are governed through HRSA, Health Resources and Services Administration, and the HRSA has regional offices. We're in South Carolina, we're in Region 4. I'm in Region 4, and the regional office is in Atlanta. In that office is something called an ombudsman, OMBUDSMON. You can go and find out what that ombudsman's office is. Call them up and make a complaint if you have a complaint. That's where the money is. That's where they come in. HRSA also, I found out they have a list of inspections that they do, in my case, for dialysis centers. So I would go to that list and I would go to the people so that were inspecting them, and they would go to DHEC, and DHEC came and inspected the dialysis centers when we were having difficulty, and they weren't the charge nurse, neither the CEO, nobody was paying attention to what we were talking about. It's like, okay, we can go higher than you. So that's what I mean about do your due diligence, but start out first with the people that are in charge. Not necessarily, the staff nurses are working really hard. They're working 12-hour shifts now. They might be overloaded with patients, but make sure that when you talk to that person, then you also talk to the person in charge, and the person that's in charge of that one, and the person that's in charge of that one. Hospitals have something called patient advocates. And when you're in the hospital and you see that it's not happening like you need it to, ask for the patient advocate. It's their job to make sure that, and hospitals are getting as competitive as other businesses are, and make sure that they do right by your father. The Office on Aging has state offices on aging, and they can also help if you contact them and tell them your concerns about the care that your loved one is getting. They can also provide respite care for you, for the family members. And it just depends on what your state allows. And I can't say it for everybody because it was different when we were in the DC area than when we were here in South Carolina. But don't stop for the first person that says no. Don't stop there. Go to the next higher level. Go to the next higher level. And if no matter how long it takes to get to that next higher layer, don't give up. Show them that you are committed and concerned about your loved one. And if your loved one can't, like you say, he has dementia, so he can't speak up for himself, then you do. And then that person is like, they have protection laws for people like that, for the aged, the people with dementia, just like they do for children. They have laws of protection for them. And so you just need to stand up, speak up, and don't take the okie doke.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a big challenge because, going in and out of the hospital, because the thing is, where the facility is, there's because whenever they call 911, they're going to take you to the closest hospital. So that was a problem because the closest hospital is not that great of a hospital. Okay. So, because he was already in a particular, he had a hospital home, if you will. But like I said, once he got to the facility, when he would go out, he would go to the closest hospital. So that was one thing. although supposedly they communicate, right? They
Okay.
can see each other's records and all of that.
Right.
Sometimes that was apparent and sometimes it wasn't. So that was one of that was, oh, I'm sorry, my nose is itching now. So that was one of the things. Then another issue was the doctor at the facility that monitored him. Sometimes when he would go out to the hospital, he would have him sent to the hospital that I don't know what the correct terminology is, but a hospital that he's also affiliated with, so he can go in and actually check on him as a patient there because he has privileges at that particular hospital.
Right.
So
Right. I understand that.
right. So that was a better hospital. Okay. So that was one of the things, in terms of, okay, well, now he's at this hospital, then he's at this hospital, and do they, are they reading each other's records? That kind of thing. Then we've had this ongoing issue with he would go into the hospital for one reason or another, and then they would find out that his white blood cell count was extremely, extremely high. But at the time, he would also have like a UTI or either C. diff, right? Which is the reason that he would go to the hospital in the first place. Then once he got there, they were giving him the antibiotic treatments and so forth. And they were concerned about his white blood cell count being so high. But then at the same time, it would start to decrease as he was on the antibiotics. So, but the thing of it was, they knew that his white blood cell count wasn't that high strictly because of the infection, that it was something else. Because it was, and I don't even remember what the number was, but whatever it was, because we also have my father's brother, one of his uncles is a clinical nurse. So, and he's been in the field for years. So, he also knew that whatever his white blood cell count was astronomical, but of course the hospital's job is to stabilize and then release you. So while he was in the hospital, it would come down, but they never really found out, even to this day, why his white blood cell count is so high like that. So it's just been because once they go in, they treat those surface issues, and you never really get any answers.
I understand that. Yeah, and that's the importance of documentation.
Okay.
Words are really good, but when you start documenting what's happening and send it to the CEO, I had to do that for an emergency room doctor one time that examined my daughter without ever touching her. And I was like, how can you do an exam and not actually touch her?
Okay.
So, of course, I wrote him up and sent that to the head of the hospital, who sent it to the medical director. See, I went straight to the top with that one. And then they sent it to the medical director, and then they sent it to the director of the emergency room. But documentation helps. And granted, it's an added chore for you, but it's one that will help you and will help them see that you are serious. And you're not going to stand for lower than average care.
Okay.
You want excellent care, and putting stuff in writing helps.
Okay. And then on top of that too, it's like you can't remember all of that.
No, you got to write it down.
Even if I did have a medical background, I can't remember all of that.
Write it down.
Yeah, right. So you know what? We'll definitely start doing that. We will definitely start doing that.
Remember, I told you my daughter was only 17 and she started writing it. And she didn't have any medical knowledge, but she just started writing down. And the more she wrote down, the more she learned, and the more she was able to express when things were not right.
Okay. All right. So definitely write things down. Okay.
Absolutely. It's in this day and age, as you started out talking before about the specialties and how they don't, they come in their tunnel vision, only regarding to their specialties. And I see that all the time. And I don't I guess doctors, when they have specialties, they get laser focused, and they forget that when they were taught in medical school, they were taught whole body. And then they were taught specialties. So sometimes you have to remind them that I'm a whole body. This is a whole body, and it's all connected. And even though you may be concerned about my heart, it has an impact on my lungs. You know, it's an impact on my circulation. And if my circulation is messed up by a clot, then that's something else that you have to think about. So they're all connected, and sometimes you just have to have a heart to heart and remind them of that. They may like it, they might not like it. I don't know, but I didn't care. I didn't care at that point. I had to call in one of the junior physicians was going to send my daughter home with a fever, and I had to call her boss about that. And so my daughter didn't go home with the fever, because I was like, no, she's not going home. I don't care if you want to discharge her. She's not going home. I'm calling the main office, and I did. So that's what I mean. You can do that. You can do that. You have a right to do that. And now, if you'll notice, in hospitals, they all have this follow-up thing for you to fill out, evaluating the hospital. How did you think they did, and all of that. That's very important also, to write down your true feelings about what happened and sign your name. They will get back with you.
Okay. You know what? So that brings up two questions I have for you. Oh God, if I can remember them now. Because you know the thing of it is, I don't want to interrupt, so I try to hold it. So I know one question is in terms of the competition, if you will, and the surveys and how are they doing. I guess, would you say that that's a good thing, and that we as consumers can use that to our advantage? So that's one question. And then the other one is, being a healthcare professional, what's your take on the whole specialty business? Do you think that's more helpful to us as patients, or not so helpful?
Well, the first thing about the competition between the hospitals, in my area, hospitals have been bought up by larger hospitals, and that's where the competition comes in between the larger hospitals. And so they're always trying to show on their annual report or monthly report that we've got so many favorable comments from people, and they're usually done by an outside firm, auditing firm, so they're not done by the hospital firm. So whatever comes up, they, according to the hospital association, that's the facts for that particular hospital, and that's a good thing. So that's why you don't ignore those, and you write back how you felt the hospitalization went. And your other question was about specialties. Yes, I like specialties. I like specialties because they are laser focused, but I also like the part where I have a primary care physician. And I alert my primary care physician to when I'm seeing a specialist. And now with the electronic health records, I can see what the specialist wrote and make sure that my primary health care physician knows what the specialist wrote, and and also what specialty, another specialty, and how that specialty interacts with the other specialty. It's a roundabout thing, but it's like when you go to the grocery store and you're deciding, which can of fruits you want to buy, and you look at them very closely, and then you decide. And then once you decide on a brand, you kind of stick with that brand. So I guess that's a simplified way to talk about it. But so the specialties do work. Specialties do help. But you need to have that coordination between all the specialties. And that's what the primary care doctor's job is. But you help them do their job.
Okay. Okay. So that's very helpful. That's very helpful.
Okay.
And I'm really, truly going to start writing things down, because, my brother and I, we would like take notes, but we haven't like put it all in one notebook. you know what I mean,
Okay.
and dated it, and, you know, things of that nature. So we need to start doing that. Like this is just one. And oh, hey, Miss Tanisha, how you doing? I don't even know if you're still with us, but I want to acknowledge you earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt. But I'm thinking that one of the things is, I think a lot of us go through this, whether it's, you know, with a elderly parent, you know, or either ourselves, or either a child, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, whichever. But definitely, I'm going to start writing things down. You know, that way you can notice patterns, you know, notice patterns yourself, or help the doctor to notice patterns, you know, things of that nature. Um,
Absolutely.
you know, to be more a part of it, I guess, you know,
Mm-hmm.
a part of the
Mm-hmm.
process. And like you said, knowing that, staying in constant contact. Like I know the facility that he's at, we have really made an effort in terms of trying to get to know the people at the facility. And I'm glad you mentioned about the higher ups, because I'm telling you, literally, it's like every week the staff changes. Not necessarily the higher ups, but
No,
like
the
the,
rest of it.
you know, the CNAs and the nurses. It's amazing that literally from week to week, it's like, okay, I'm sorry, what's your name? I don't think we've ever met. Okay, you know what I mean? It's amazing to me, and it just seems like it's beginning to get worse and worse. You know, I don't even know what that's about. I guess that's a whole nother subject, but you know, but the thing of it is, those individuals, you know some of them know my father, like they know my dad, or, you know, if there was some consistency, they know that if he's fussing, he's okay. Because, you know, my father's very cranky. So if he's fussing and arguing, he's doing all right. If he's not doing well. Right. So again, if they know him, they would know that. Or the fact that he's not able to feed himself. You know, and staff, you know, sometimes it trickles down, sometimes it doesn't. But if they know him, they would know, okay, he's gonna need a little bit of help eating. And you know, he chews his food for a long time. You know, so you know, you give him a bite, you can go run and do something real quick and come back, and then he'll be ready for another bite. But again, if they knew him, you know what I mean, it was some consistency, that might be a little bit easier. So, you know, it's a host of challenges. However, we have to, you know, we won't give up. You know, even though there's these different barriers, we still make sure that we're calling and you know, going and making an attempt to, you know, well, hi, I'm so and so, you know, how's he doing today? You know, so on and so forth. So we've definitely made our presence known, whether it's at the
Absolutely.
hospital or whether it's at the facility. You know, they know us. And it's just myself and my brother. So, you know, they know us now, you know. So but I know what you mean. That's extremely important. So we definitely make sure that we do that. But I'm gonna get a notebook, and we're gonna be writing everything down, you know, from everything that's going on in the facility. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like today he was coughing. You know, they said he had been coughing for maybe the past, I don't know, a couple of weeks, you know, so we need to write that down. So thank you so much for that. So I want to
Yeah,
leave some
just
time
get
for
a
you to.
steno pad. You don't have to get a big notebook, just a steno pad.
Okay.
That'll work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you want to leave the audience with in terms of, you know, how to be able to navigate, as well as, you know, some inspiration, and then leave off on the note of telling them the title of your book again, where they can find it, and how they can follow you and reach out to you if they want to.
The biggest thing that I found out, and I think is the communication.
Yeah.
Um, when I was with the government, the Vice President Al Gore did an initiative about plain language, plain talk, and it was directed at healthcare professionals, not to use all the big words. Use plain talk when you're talking to people, and so when they're saying things to you that you don't understand, say, "Hold up, what's that? What does that mean? What does that mean for me?" That's a good thing to do. And then that way they know that they're not communicating with you. Make sure that you understand what they're saying, and then make sure that they also understand what you're saying. And that communication goes both ways, and that's very, very, very important. That's the key. I gave a talk at the School of Public Health, and that was the main message that many of the faculty kept talking about, is that communication. And that's what they learned from my book, how important that communication was. I think that the other thing is, don't be afraid. Stand up for yourself. It's your loved one. Stand up. Stand up until, like my mom told me, she didn't want me to stand up for her anymore, and she was ready to go meet Jesus. And I said, okay, Mom. And that was it. But until that point comes, stand up, stand up, stand up.
So,
Don't give up. The name
so
of my book is Oh, you want to say something?
I was just gonna just say this real quick. I went to the dermatologist, and I went to the dermatologist. That was actually my first time visiting a dermatologist, and she came out, and it sounded like she was speaking another language with what
Mm-hmm.
she told me she thought I had. And I remember thinking to myself, like, now I don't know what you're saying. I don't even know how to. And I said it to her. I said, I can't even spell what you're saying right now. So
Mm-hmm.
I need either you or either your assistant to write that down for me, if you would, please. I like to know and be able to look it up on my own. So I know what you mean. I just had to stop her. Now
Right.
they weren't happy with it. They
Oh,
acted a
don't.
little irritated, but I didn't care. So when
Mm-mm.
you say stand up for yourself, I had to stand up for myself. So I totally agree with that. Okay, go ahead. Now tell them where they can name of the book again and where they can find you.
The name of the book is Never Give Up. That's my mantra, but it's Never Give Up. Cheryl's story. And the reason I say that's because they had a bunch of ones on there, on the Amazon.com that says Never Give Up. And I was like, no, Cheryl's story has to stand up, and it has to be able to see. And you'll see this beautiful picture of my daughter and I. And that's it. There it is. Never Give Up. Cheryl's story, and it's on Amazon.com. If you want to contact me, I'm also on Facebook. My email is franashe@aol.com. That's FRANASHE at AOL.com.
So,
And
just briefly, what's next for you now?
well, like I told you in the beginning, my daughter was writing. I told my daughter to write in her journals, so I'm going over her journals now, and I'm writing another book from her perspective, and hers is a lot more. Hers is more like a diary. So
Okay.
that was my first book, the one that I just wrote that was just released in October, but
Mhm.
so I'm working on hers now. It's going to take me a while, but in the meantime, I'm on several boards, health boards, and women's policy boards, and even with AARP. That's something I meant to mention. AARP, if you go to their website, they have a caregiving section that has a lot of tips and things that you can use in practical messages. That's at aarp.com. And I guess I can do a commercial for them. I don't know. But anyway, that's one of my resources, aarp.com. And there are other resources too. Like I told you, the Office on Aging, please go to that and find out what their resources are. And HRSA, HRSA.gov. And just put the search engine as you're looking for agencies that you might need to write a letter to about something that's going on with your loved one.
Okay. Wow. This has been so informative, and thank you so much. It's such a pleasure having you, and I'm so glad that I was, able to be connected with you. I know we connected through Angela Lewis,
Yes.
and it's just been such a pleasure having you on the show. And I really, everyone, please share this out. Tag someone. We want to get the information out there, because we don't want you to feel powerless. That
Exactly.
we don't want you to feel powerless. You're not alone. There are some different things you can do to improve the whole experience for yourself, for your loved one. Definitely reach out to Miss Frances and grab the book. And I'm really excited too about your next project. I mean, I think that's awesome. Taking her journals and creating a book out of that. I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much again for being on the show. And I'm just going to end by saying, I'm your host, Jacqueline Harrison. Again, if you are interested in being on the show to be able to provide personal, professional leadership development, to be able to help someone else scale their business, to improve their life in any way, like I said, personal, professional development, please reach out to me so you can be a guest on the show. I would love to have you. Also, look for that link so you can speak in the upcoming summit in January. It's actually January the 15th, 2023. It is Uniting Women of Color Worldwide. So if you are a global speaker or you want to be a global speaker, definitely reach out to me and let's have a conversation and let's get you set to hit that virtual stage January 15th, 2023. So take care, everyone, and I will see you again next Sunday. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frances.
Thank you.
All right. Take care,
Bye-bye.
everybody.